Welcome back to On Texas Football for the weekly edition of the Recruiting Breakdown. I'm joined, as always, by Gerry Hamilton. I'm CJ Vogel. Listen, Gerry, we're hucking right along in this 2024 football season for the Longhorns. Coming off the final bye, all steam ahead for the final 4 games of the regular season. Of course, Texas will have 2 more opportunities to get recruits onto campus. Of course, 2 big games, one of them starting this upcoming weekend against Florida. But where do you kind of see this class right now? We're going to dive into the rest of this 2025 cycle. We're about a month away from signing day.
Signing day, right? Signing day, yeah.
Whatever. I'll leave it there with you. It's signing day, right? But is it still signing day?
It's going to feel different. Well, maybe after this year it feels different. This year, maybe the plans have already been made, but we'll see. But it's going to feel different because there's no national letter of intent. So that's just – it's going to have a different feel for sure because guys aren't going to be as tied in. I mean, they could do something on December 4th and turn around 2 weeks later and do something different. And I know people say, well, that's how it's been. Nobody's been holding the national letter of intent. But you still have to go through a process if you really want to do it. Nowadays, there's not even a letter of intent. But look, I think, Texas ranked sixth class, top 5 worthy class is where they're at right now with 21 commitments. I could see it going as high as 26, 27. The key for me is going to be positional need filling now. They're going to have a 3-4 ranked class. Is 2 possible? Maybe if they run the table on some guys, win out through the A&M game or something and get the extra player at the end, an extra flip that you weren't really counting on. But it's coming down for me, CJ, 2 D-line slots. DB, you want 1 more corner, and then you'll probably still go to the portal. So it really comes down to defensive line for me. Adding a corner, it would have to be a flip target, maybe adding a linebacker. But we do have some news out of the state of Florida that could impact. Not everybody has to be a flip anymore. There's a couple of guys that are on the radar about the visit who are not committed anywhere.
Yeah, of course. It is flip season. But Gerry, you were out down on the road in Florida. You've been all over the place in the Southeastern Conference territory. Tell us a little bit about Grayson Littleton and what he brings to the table, as well as any visit plans he has coming up to Texas potentially.
Yeah, so this is news for the Texas fans. I was at Wiregrass Ranch, northeast of Tampa, on Monday for practice. At the time, Grayson Littleton was having a conversation last night with the Texas staff to lock in the official visit. He texted me at 2:30 East Coast time today, 1:30 Central time, and said the official visit is locked into Texas this weekend. And that's big. Grayson Littleton, 6 foot, 175-pound corner, ran 10.8 last spring, was committed to Clemson, decommitted from Clemson last Friday. Texas offered Terry Joseph and Jeff Banks were by the school. Visited Michigan officially last weekend. Now he visits Texas this weekend. And as of yesterday, talking to him, he said, I don't want to go through the whole process. I don't want to open it up to everybody anymore and do that whole process again. There's not enough time. He's a December high school graduate. So he said, visited Michigan officially with his stepfather, mom, and brother. Same people are going to go with him to Texas this weekend. And he said, look, if I don't feel like one of those 2 is my school, then maybe I'll pick another official visit. But then you're in the playoff time in the state of Florida, too. They have a Thursday night game to finish up regular season. Then you're into the playoffs, and Wiregrass is a 9-0 team expected to advance a couple of rounds into the playoffs, maybe 3 rounds in. Well, then you can't take an official visit anymore because it's Friday or Saturday playoff games. So it makes it more difficult unless you took a Florida or Miami visit. I'm not saying they're in it. So what my long-winded self is saying is Michigan or Texas is where right now Grayson Littleton, the 4-star corner from Tampa area, is expected to end up after decommitting from Clemson. The tie-in with Texas is he's been there once last spring with a 7-on-7 team. He played with California Power, that 7-on-7 team that also has a 5-on-5 team, also has the big man camps. He knows Myron Charles, Javian Hilson, and some of those other guys from California Power. So he can get questions answered about Texas. He doesn't already know. He's now going to see it for himself. I have a feeling that Texas, he's a really good culture fit at Texas after being around him and talking to the staff at Wiregrass Ranch yesterday. Their DB coach is actually a former Gainesville PK Young high standout who played at SMU in college. So he's familiar with Texas, University of Texas, State of Texas. And he kind of echoed me, said it could be a really good fit at Texas with what Sark and those guys are doing. I expect Texas to blow him away. Is it going to be enough because Michigan's considered the favorite right now? We'll see. But again, Grayson Littleton looks like it's going to come down to Michigan or Texas for the 4-star corner who can also play nickel out of Wiregrass Ranch, northeast of Tampa.
Well, that's good stuff right there. And we're not expecting a whole lot of people on campus for this Florida game. We'll dive into that a bit later. As for some other potential flip targets, Jerry, before I get your thoughts a little bit more on what Littleton brings to the table athletically, let's hear from our sponsor, Mark Saunders in Allstate.
Yeah, when it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects all of it? I got some great news for you. That's Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders, who serves the Austin and Round Rock areas and the entire state of Texas. He's the only insurance agent you'll need. Everything from your home, car, boat, to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Do what so many other On Texas Football family members have done in the last year. Call Texas Allstate agent off Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Again, if you're looking for somebody local to the Austin, Round Rock area and all of Texas, give Mark Saunders a call, 512-218-8571. Texas alum Mark Saunders has got your back. He'll get you the best rates, everything you need, one-stop shop.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerry. And thank you again, Mark Saunders, for sponsoring the recruiting breakdown this week. And all right, Jerry, you talked about Grayson Littleton's fit culturally. How did he look athletically? Is he able to move on, change the direction very well? Talk about his frame as well.
Well, it was a practice late this season, so you don't see a lot, but talking to the coaching staff based on what you just saw, a little bit of, and then off tape. First, his height, everything checked out on him. He's quick. He's fast, but he's also quick. He's got some suddenness to him in his movement skills. So I think, look, I was very impressed with him. Most people have him ranked around 150, 125 in the country overall, right in that area. I see that ranking with him. I think he's a top 150 level type prospect in the country, and a guy that had 40 offers before he committed to Clemson. But yeah, I was very impressed with him, and he's got a frame. Bobby Burton asked me, hey, does he remind you anybody? I couldn't think anybody, CJ, and it may be before you, but Carrington Bindum was a corner at Texas from Lufkin High who had a cup of coffee in the NFL. They have the same frame. I was thinking about somebody Texas fans may know. They had the same frame. It's a wiry, strong frame. He'll probably be a 185, 190-pound guy when all's said and done. I don't think he's ever going to be a 200-pound corner, but he's got enough length. He's going to be wiry, strong, and he's going to be a guy that runs in the 4.4s. I mean, he's quicker than fast, but still fast enough to run 10.7, 10.8. So that equates into that guy that's going to run in the 4.4s because he's got some suddenness about him.
Yeah, Clemson has been a school that's, kind of diagnosed really quick, talented cornerbacks early in cycles. So a good sign there. Texas getting in late. Of course, he will be on campus, as Jerry just broke the news, this weekend against Florida. But Jerry, a month away from signing day, or whatever we want to call it, which means Flipmas, and we teased this about last week as well. That season's upon us.
Yeah,
Texas picking up some communications with 5-star Louisville offensive tackle Michael Fasusi, currently committed to Oklahoma. It feels like it's a 3-team race right there, right? Texas A&M's trying to get back in the mix. Texas trying to peel him away from the Sooners. And the Sooners are obviously trying to hold on there. 3-team race moving forward. Is that the expectation for Michael Fasusi?
Yeah, maybe. I know A&M will try, but I think A&M leads for Lamont Rogers out of Mesquite Horn, who's committed to Missouri. So where does that kind of leave them, right? I think for Fasusi, it's so interesting coming down the stretch with him because for the first 5-6 games of the season, he wasn't talking to Texas, and Texas had tried, but he wasn't responding. And it's not because Texas beat OU; it's because the season OU was having. Finally, the communication started. Then they fire Seth Luttrell. So what immediately happens is, well, you assume Bill Bedenbaugh will be there, but you don't know for sure. So if Oklahoma continues losing games and you don't know if Bill Bedenbaugh is going to be there, as much as you like Norman as a college town and see the path to the field earlier being right where you'd want it to be as an early high school graduate at Oklahoma, that still gives you pause. So I think there's a little bit of optimism building for the schools recruiting him. I'm not ready to say the kid's going to flip, but I do think if Oklahoma keeps losing games with the uncertainty around the Sooners program and Bill Bedenbaugh, that's going to leave the door open for Texas.
It'll muddy the water for them in terms of holding on to him.
Because the kids start feeling the pressure in that scenario because you're an early high school graduate. You're a month out. You're 2 months out from moving your things somewhere for college. You start to feel that pressure of the uncertainty at the school you're committed to, and that does give the Texases or at Texas A&M the opportunity for the steal or the flip or whatever you want to call it. But if Oklahoma continues to struggle on the field, and the people that cover Oklahoma are saying, well, I don't know if Bill Bedenbaugh is going to be back or not, that can have an impact.
It absolutely can. And listen, players, coaches, they see stuff, recruits, they see stuff as well. So social media, that talking heads, shoot, you and I, that trickles down. So in this instance, of course, if that noise were to get loud, that would have an impact as well. Also in the category of Flipmas, any Texas prospects that are in the class right now. I know that Nick Brooks just took a trip down to Auburn, watched the Tigers lose to Vanderbilt 17-7 this past weekend. It doesn't feel like that's something to keep a close eye on right now, but of course, a month out, anything can happen, and Texas certainly has a number of talented guys. SEC teams will be wanting to flip over to their side as well.
Yeah, so what's interesting to me, so everybody reported, Nick Brooks is at Auburn, right? He told Texas ahead of time he was going. And he was going with multiple teammates from Grayson that went to the Auburn Vanderbilt game. So right now, nothing on my end with that. Auburn has one home game left. If he were to show up at A&M, then it gets more interesting, right? If you go once with friends, I don't blame any kid for going to college games. I would if I was a high school recruit. If he shows up again and it's just him and a family member, then it's something to really talk about. Right now, I think Texas feels good about where they're at with Nick Brooks. Then there's Zelus Hicks with CJ. I mean, look, he's reclassified to 2025 now. So what does that mean? These colleges are making the last second push because when he committed to Texas, a lot of schools are like, well, we have time here. We know he's thinking about being a 2025, but I'm not sure he can be a 2025. Well, now he can. So Tennessee would made a mad rush to get him on campus. He's scheduled to be at Florida for the LSU game. We'll see if Georgia tries to get back in on it because they don't have time to play with. Then he's supposed to be at Georgia Tech for the Miami game. Been really strong with Texas, but again, he's got 3 visits scheduled. So he's the guy now that he's a 2025 and all that added pressure for the colleges that really like him now know, whoa, I mean, it's not like he's graduating in December, but at the end of the school year. So they're still working up against time where they weren't really beforehand. And so it'll be interesting to see there on Zelus Hicks, but I think Texas has been in a really good spot with him.
What does that do for Texas in the 25 cycle with him now in the class? I know that it's kind of been, you add Jonah Williams into the fold and you think, okay, that's the focal point, and you wonder where else they go. Obviously with Hicks, you have your answer. But for 26, what are the implications of both classifications with Hicks making the jump up to 25?
Yeah, assuming Texas wins out for him, right? I mean, that's 2 really good safety prospects in this class. And again, Hicks, that's a guy graduating high school early. So, right, maybe his first year is a learning year for him, especially since he won't have spring football. But the biggest thing for me is Jonah Williams had the cracked clavicle in his left shoulder. So, he should be good to go for baseball, but he wasn't planning on having spring football anyway at Texas. He's planning on going to the meetings, sitting in the meeting rooms, learning the scheme, getting accustomed to Blake Gideon, but not being on the football practice field. But now you have 2 safeties in the 25 class, and neither one of them are in for the spring for football. They don't take part in spring football, I should say. So that's a little bit different for Texas. So could that lead them to go to the portal as well? We'll have to see. I mean, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, good player, obviously a really bright future. Xavier Filsaime, very talented. Jelani McDonald looks really good. Derek Williams will be coming off an ACL. He won't be available for the spring. You assume Michael Taft's back, but we'll see, right? I mean, Makuba obviously is out of eligibility. So it's likely Texas has 2025 safeties currently committed in the class. Neither one will be there for spring football padded practice. So that would lead you to believe that maybe they end up going to the portal. So that's a little different. They got 2 tremendously talented safeties, but neither one are actually going to be on the practice field in the spring for Texas.
It's pretty interesting. We've seen Texas go to the portal for instant impact to guys. Obviously, you mentioned Makuba there, but we've also seen them do that for depth, right? Javion Cole in the secondary a year ago as well. Could that be the more accurate route there. We'll see, obviously, but that's a really good point in terms of what that spring's, kind of roster will look like, especially in the secondary. Real quick, of course, there are other targets that we needed to touch on in the 2025 class. Here you see the graphic made by our great producer, Matthew. A few interesting names here. I wanted to get your thoughts again on Kellen Wiley, because that's linebacking room right now. Of course, Texas has Jonathan Cunningham. They have Elijah Barnes. You see three names in that linebacking room. Is Wiley the most likely? Is Ferramo fading away? What's the latest on Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng as well?
Yeah, and we couldn't put all the guys on there for the people who are going to ask about Riley Pettijohn. Texas is still recruiting him, but there's not a ton of upward momentum right now as of November 5th. We'll see in a month. But Boateng's scheduled to be in officially for the Kentucky game. But Kellen Wiley from Sefner Armwood, I saw him last Wednesday. He's scheduled to be in this weekend. So 2 Tampa area prospects making official visits to Texas this weekend for the Florida game. Kellen Wiley's a Miami lean. He visits there at the end of November. He's got Maryland or Penn State on the 16th, probably Maryland. He's got Texas this weekend. He is a really high upside prospect, 6'3.5", 226, 80-inch wingspan, 10.5-inch hands, can really close on the footballs, physical, got good hands, used to play tight end as well. A really good prospect. So he may not have the name ID nationally, but with college coaches that have watched him this season, he is one of the top upside linebacker prospects in the country. So obviously, we'll see if Madden Ferramo, he's visiting Notre Dame, USC again. Does he come into Texas on the 23rd? Texas is still trying. I don't know if that'll happen. But Kellen Wiley's the one guy that is coming in this weekend, and I do think after this weekend that Texas will make a play for him and make Miami's job tough. Can they overcome Miami? I don't know. Is Ant with the Texas? I don't think that'll have an impact. So we'll have to see what happens. Then on D-line, look, it's a waiting game. Chase Sims isn't even up there, committed to A&M, but the key there is Joseph Mbaktu, Kevin Wynn. We don't have Justice Terry up there either, 5-star, but Justice Terry, Joseph Mbaktu, Kevin Wynn are all expected to be at the Tennessee-Georgia game November 16th. Mbaktu, I think, is making an official visit that weekend. So the 3 of the top D-line targets will be at the Georgia-Tennessee game as guests to Georgia. Walter Mathis may be in town in November. Texas is working on it. They haven't been able to get him in town to this point. Him or Kevin Wynn would have to get on. Well, Mathis has never been on campus. They'd have to get Kevin Wynn back with both parents. Then there's Malcolm Simpson, who Texas wants to get back up for a game, but they haven't scheduled an official visit, which is interesting. He's committed to Nebraska, 4-star. They're really keeping tabs on his academics and continuing to watch him. So that's where it's at on D-line. Javion Hilson, I saw him Friday against Cocoa. A&M or Texas? Texas or Texas A&M. However you want to say it, that's what that decision's coming down to. He's scheduled to be at the A&M Texas game in a College Station for his official visit to A&M November 30th. But if Cocoa wins their first 2 rounds of the playoffs, he won't be able to make that visit. A lot of people in the Cocoa program still think Texas is the team to beat. One of those people around the program said toss-up, one said A&M. So there we go, right? I mean, it's still more thinking Texas. There's one A&M and one toss-up. So I think, look, it could go either way. It's going to be a football decision, not NIL. That's going to be good wherever he goes, not emotional decision based on a game. It's all the football zero-focused dude. He's a laser focused on football. Scheme, maximization, NFL. The school that he thinks is best for him is where he'll go, period, with Javion Hilson. Then at corner, Grayson Littleton, we talked about Dorian Bruce, still have good contact with Texas. We're not saying he's going to flip from Oregon. I think it would have to be a family thing, just staying closer to home. That's why Texas could win out in the end. But as of right now, he's committed to Oregon, but Texas is getting enough feedback from him that they're still in communication, right? And then Devin Sanchez, Dijon Lee. Look, if they don't show up on campus here at the Florida game or the Kentucky game, it's not happening. So that's where we're at defensive back. Then I'll let you hit on Michael Terry. It looks like that one could go to December 4th now. We'll see.
Yeah, that was kind of the word that he told me earlier in the year. Of course, there were also some louder whispers that a November decision could come sooner. Obviously, we know the months right there. So December was always kind of the plan for Michael Terry. But again, those folks around him, coming out of Alamo Heights, it felt like it was a bit up in the air. And right now, we'll see. He has a ceremony this week for his his All-American Bowl jersey presentation down at Alamo Heights. Could something come there? I don't think so, but I do think that decision will come. And really in the next month, and it's going to have to come in the next month. I still feel really good about Texas. There's a push from Nebraska, obviously, as well. Matt Rule's not going to go out quietly, and he's been the focal point from the Cornhuskers in this recruitment, which says a lot about how well they see him in their recruiting push as well. Jerry, I know that we've talked about it in the sense of what's to come the next 2 home games, the final 2 home games. Before we touch on some visitors there, because I got some notes on guys that might be visiting for those 2 games. One final word about Mark Saunders and our sponsor, Allstate, for the recruiting breakdown.
Yeah. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? I got the guy. It's Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders, who serves the Austin and Round Rock area and the entire state of Texas. He's the only insurance agent you'll need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Again, that number, 512-218-8571. Do what so many other On Texas Football family members have done. That's called Texas alum Mark Saunders.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Mark Saunders. All right, Texas plays Florida this weekend. It's going to be a bit of a quieter recruiting outcome for the Longhorns at DKR. Of course, Georgia game took all the headlines. Mississippi State was a big opportunity for Texas as well. One name I did want to mention, Jason Bradford, 2026 cornerback out of Temple, about 6'2", 180, 185. Has 7 offers right now: Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Texas State, Arizona State, a few schools in the mix for him right now. He's expected to be on campus. He told me that he's planning on making the trip down to Austin, down I-35. He's someone that Texas hosted for the elite camp over the summer. He can move very well. I know that there's some guys in the central Texas region that like to compare him as a bigger body corner to Selman Bridges. I think he changes direction a little bit better. So we'll see what Texas ends up doing at cornerback, but he is a lengthier guy that can move pretty well. One of those guys to keep a close eye on, at least down in the next couple of months for 26. And then 27 quarterback Brady Edmonds, I mentioned him a few weeks ago. He's either going to be on campus for the Florida game or the Kentucky game. He'll use the rest of this week to decide when he's expected back on campus, as is the same kind of situation for 2026 running back Amari Latimer out of Georgia. So 2 opportunities for the Longhorns to host recruits the rest of the season, of course, and then who knows what might happen with a home playoff game and a college football playoff appearance later on. But, Jerry, before we get out of here, any final notes with about a month to go from signing day?
No, I think, look, it's down to it. Most of these guys are going to announce on December 4th, 5th, or 6th, right around that time. Big boy battles on the defensive line in the Southeast Conference. I'd love to sit here and say, hey, player X, player Y, player Z, they're all leaning to Texas. I'm not going to do that. Look, Joseph Mbaktu, Texas done a great job in that recruitment, but you're still sitting there with Tennessee, USC, Auburn, potentially Georgia, where he's scheduled to officially visit for the Tennessee game. So that's a real recruiting battle. The battle to get Walter Mathis and Kevin Wynn on campus this month, big battle. Battle in A&M for Chase Sims, the 4-star D lineman out of the D line who's committed to A&M out of Richmond Randall. So they just got some real battles coming up. Linebacker, it'll be interesting. I'm very interested to see this weekend, though. Grayson Littleton, the 4-star corner out of Wiregrass in Tampa, who's a one-time Clemson commit who visited Michigan last weekend, and Kellen Wiley, the linebacker from Sefner Armwood, who's a Miami lean over Texas right now going into this visit, and Florida, where Texas sits after this weekend with those guys. And I think they're going to blow both those guys away this weekend and be very, very much in the mix.
Well, good stuff. And as always, Jerry, thank you very much for your insight and knowledge on the recruiting world as it comes down to Texas and a number of SEC schools to finish out this 2025 cycle. For all the future intel and breaking news coming before next week's recruiting breakdown, come find us at ontexasfootball.com. But for Gerry Hamilton, I'm CJ Vogel, and this has been On Texas Football. Y'all have a good one. Hook 'em.